it's the Stone Chatter crew again. Episode number 5. We've made it this far, guys. Any lawsuits yet?
No, no lawsuits.
Nope.
Not yet.
I'm just I'm just not going to my mailbox, so I'm a maybe on that one. I don't quite know yet, but no, episode number 5, and because we're still starting this, just to remind everybody, every odd episode, right, is just us three clowns sitting around talking about what's new in the industry, what we're seeing out there, kind of just an update. And then on the even ones, that's where we have the smart people come in, the industry experts, the people that are out there living this stuff in different categories every day. Right, the very first one we did talked about silicosis in California. Then the one after that, we have the machine guys, girls too, with the gals, with Megan, talking about what new technologies coming down the pike with them. Our next one here with the content providers is going to be suppliers, and I think the premise is really interesting in that we believe, right, that at one time the relationships, the partnerships between material suppliers and shops was tighter and a bit different than it is now. And I don't want to say it's devolved, but we want to have that. That's what we want to find out, right? So we've got 2 suppliers on the call, 2 fabricators on the call, and we're just going to brainstorm over A, if they believe that premise, and B, what can we do to fix it, right? I mean, we're all in this together. Plenty of money in our industry to go around, right? So I'm just hopeful that we can figure some things out and maybe move towards a new direction, because I've just as you guys have too, there's always things that come up, again, kind of a nice lead into our first topic on the call, right? When a couple of the largest suppliers in the country start asking for tariffs and don't really include the fabricators in that. That in itself can lead to a little tension between the supply chain.
Yeah, I've got my magnifying glass out looking at Rich real closely to see if he's getting any green scales. He's becoming a swamp creature because he spent so much time in DC lately, man. What's going on? What's up with that?
Drain the swamp, Rich. Come on, man.
I am very swampy these days, but that might be for other reasons.
The attire, was it double Windsor again? Was it Ascot? Was it what did we go with?
Erik, I'm a man of the people. I was in a suit with no tie.
Ooh, I like it.
All right. Ooh.
So
going for the billionaire look. I like it.
Yep. So that was my strategic decision. Well, all right, and we got to get to the real stuff. But the real answer to that is I've gained about 15 pounds and I couldn't get my collar tight. So, there
you have it. The truth comes out. I love it.
My wife bought for me to have a flexible top button. By the way, Rich, if you need to get to that level, I've had a gizzard.
I'm very quickly getting there. That's for sure. All right, enough about us, right? So this is coming out after our machine talk, so make sure you guys listen to that if you missed that one. Just some really interesting stuff. It's rare. Park is such an industry leader, and it's a little bit rare to get an executive from Park kind of talking about strategy and what they're up to. So definitely tune into that one. I thought it was really interesting. So let's start with the ITC, right? I think when I'm out there looking at LinkedIn, looking at Facebook, man, lots of interest, just curiosity, right? Kind of the process. And I don't want to spend too much time on it because it feels like we're always talking about regulation these days. But, I was out there in February testifying for the shops, right? So the high level, Cambria Doll Tile, a couple of others went in and said imported quartz is hurting their business unfairly, and therefore we need to put tariffs and quotas on it. And again, the decision process for the Trade Commission is that everybody in the industry has to be hurt, and then they'll go ahead and make a decision. Yep. So the material guys downplayed the value that the fabricators add to the whole process, right? And so I was the voice, the loud voice, just saying, hey, that's not true, right? Robots and lasers and customer service and all of these things to take a slab which essentially has no value and put it into someone's home, right?
Hey,
So,
Rich,
yeah.
isn't that what you did last time? What's different about this meeting?
Oh my God. Oh, so that was just the yes or no. Have there been damages?
And real
Okay.
And
fast, Rich, there was only one from our discussion. You only had one fabricator present at that hearing in February, correct? Is that
Weisenbaker, yep, was the only one there. And then I was there, I don't count, but I was there kind of representing the fabricators,
got
right?
it? Okay.
So Ed, to your point, three commissioners, there should be six, but Washington, D.C. is a mess and nobody can get anybody appointed.
Yeah.
And they voted 2-1 in favor of tariffs and quotas. So
Okay.
that was a done deal in February. You can't go back on it. It is what it is.
Yep.
All right.
Fast forward to last week. Now they listen. It's a public hearing to decide, help them to decide, okay, what are the damages? Do we do a
Gotcha.
50% tariff? Do we do a 5% tariff? Quotas by country, quotas by material type. What's it all look like?
Yep.
And then here's where, again, and I'm so glad you brought up Washington, D.C. Then, so they spend hours and hours and hours, and we spend hours and hours putting together all of these arguments. They then put that recommendation up to Trump, and he can do whatever the heck he wants, right? So they can build this gorgeous plan that says, don't include glass materials, and only these countries deserve it. And then Trump can look at it and just say 50% across the board. So but so that's what this last week was us trying to convince the commission, okay, we lost, we get it, but let's minimize the impact on the shops.
Yeah.
And so this is where it gets really, really cool. As you guys mentioned, one shop and me at the first one, we had 15 fabricators on their own dime fly to DC, get all suited up, and present themselves to the commission. And it was incredibly impactful. I mean, I couldn't. I was. It's gonna sound so corny, but I'm getting old, so I can be corny. I was so proud of our industry, right? I mean, it was. I had goosebumps, right? So the way it played out, the petitioners go first. So Marty was there, Dahl was there, their lawyers. Again, damages. Surge in imports. We can't build anything new. We can't invest in anything new. Help us. Then we had 12 of the 15 fabricators go one by one, sit right in front of the commission, and talk about what tariffs and quotas are going to do to their business.
And these
It
were
was
all name brand. I hate to say name brand, but people know these fabricators, right? These aren't just small. I mean, these are well known.
correct.
Industry forever, very connected, very interactive in the industry. I mean, drop us some names. Who was there? Who were the guys that presented?
So Ted was there from Flowform, right? You don't get much bigger than that,
Yep.
right? Travis McDermott was there. Peter Dominguez, right, from California, right, who's been used to getting in front of people and talking about stuff like this.
Yep.
Geez, and now my mind's going blank a little bit on some of the others. Tim Zhang was there, right, runs the SFA.
Yep.
Bill Millar, who's part of the artisan crew, was there. Right, so just a nice variety of huge shops, middle shops, smaller shops, and one consistent kind of message. Right, they all had different emphasis. They all presented it. These are human beings, right? And they're speaking. One consistent message was cut to size and prefab, right, have to be part of this because they are getting zero or next to none of that revenue coming over right now.
Yep.
And we estimated that's about 10% of all square footage. So right now, fabricators are only getting 90%, and we know how the multifamilies all work, right? I mean, the importers bring it in. There's traveling crews. I used to do this for a living, that would fly in or drive in and Airbnb, knock that stuff out and go on to the next one, right? So all of our shops, from memory, all of them, maybe one didn't mention cut to size, but they're all in favor of cut to size. Okay. And that was great. I mean, how could you be? I think everybody's for that, right? Except for the guys that are doing a lot of cut to size overseas, and then varying degrees of how much the normal slab tariffs would hurt their business, right? And so that's what but the important thing of what the commission took away is, contrary to kind of the attitude that the suppliers had put out there. Yes, the fabricators are a very important part of this business, and a lot of them talked about their processes and what they have to do and all of that stuff. So it was gorgeous. It was absolutely beautiful. Um, and then after that, our side, which was kind of the minimize damages side, kind of presented our case. I gave a neat little a neat little discussion where, again, one of the things that the suppliers calculated was a 50% increase would only increase the cost of a countertop by $200. And so I walked through it, and I mean I can walk through it now. I'll do it real quick, and then we can move on, right? So if someone's paying $8 a foot, right, for a piece of quartz that they're putting in someone's house, right? A 50% tariff adds $4 to that, right? The importer's going to add $1 to make it 5. The shop now is probably going to add around 2, right? Because we've got more expensive product utilization, all of that good stuff. And then if there's a builder, let's say it's a builder involved, they're going to add $1, right? So that 50% tariff on an $8 piece now is $8 more a foot. If you're doing, say you're doing a Pulte home or a new construction, it's 110 to 130 square feet. It's $1,000, right? So no, you're not raising the home $200. You're raising it $1,000, and so we made that point, and so it was just a lot of back and forth. So kind of the net, right, is sometime in the middle of May, they make their recommendation to the president. It will hit his desk, and then he can look at it that night, like he kind of did with cabinets, or it can sit for a month. Just depends on what he's up to, what his priorities are. We don't know exactly how quickly. I thought I heard someone say the cabinets was about 60 days they had, but I'm not positive about that. But it feels like sometime this summer something's going to happen. So I've been getting phone calls, and Erik, this is where I want to really lean on you. I've gotten couple of handfuls of phone calls from bigger shops saying, look, this is imminent, right? They already said 2 to 1, it's coming. Should I start bringing in containers now and avoid it? And I don't really have a good answer. We talked about it a little, but there was no conclusion about if they're going to go in the past, right? And if they're going to pick a day, and like they did with China, right? What are your thoughts about some type of strategy along those lines, or just odds of what's going to happen?
Yeah, so I've had similar calls, and one, I love that you were there, Rich. So thanks for the time and effort to help support the voice of the fabricator, right? Because we want to hear everybody, right? Everyone needs a voice in this. But yeah, I've been getting a lot of calls. The quick thing that I could assess right now is you have to establish precedent, right? And the precedent that we've seen from tariffs that have come, and you go back to China, and then you do the India, Turkey, which was round 2. Right now, you've got this, which would be round 3. The precedent was set early on that even though they didn't disclose that there could be a punitive or a retroactive tariff, they did, when they saw the change from China to India specifically, they did approve a retroactive tariff. So my concern for the fabricators, because for a fabricator ordering containers, right, that's probably establishing a really long supply chain for them, right? One container is probably a quarter's worth of production for a good sized shop, right? If it's a small shop, it could be a full year to 2 of production. One, I wouldn't over order at the moment. And 2, be aware if the retroactive comes and we could get this data to them, if they get hit with that, it was significant to most shops. I mean, we had one shop here in Utah, they got hit with theirs when they did the retroactive. I think their total bill was like 350 grand. But then you saw the big suppliers, because I'm at Dow at that point when we did it. Dow did the same thing that people are asking you about, Rich, is that we went and we over ordered. It's like, let's get as much in here as we can. We want to be a good supply partner. We don't want to run out. And our number, I don't remember the total number, but it was significant. MSI's number was significant. So the concern is that there's precedent that even though it's not disclosed in the filing for the safeguard petition, there is a high likelihood that if imports surge once they make this decision, that there could be retroactive, and they got it done really quickly. So that would be my thing, is just be safe. Can you factor in that number, and can you make it, if it's a $50,000 penalty, maybe you do it, right? But if you can't and you just don't know, I would hold. Honestly, I would hold. I would be nervous.
So Erik, when those things happened, can you give us a rough idea of what the percentage penalty was? Somebody gets a $350,000 penalty. It wasn't for one container, obviously. So,
No.
If you got a container and container's value is X, what was that penalty as a percent of X?
It's a great question. I don't want to shoot it from the hip, even though I do that all the time.
Why? You don't want to do that? Not Erik.
I do know it was substantial. The valuation of the container times 1.5, I think, was it was still significant.
And how far back did they go? Just back to the time of the ruling or back further?
So this one's interesting, and my brain's melted, but I'll tell you, it was sometime in spring when they announced this, the India, and said, if you get your materials on the water by this date, which I want to say it was June 1st. So everybody just ran, got everything front loaded, everything was on the water, and you saw the ruling, but they backdated it. So when it hit, this was a June timeframe, everyone thought they were in the clear. They dated it back clear to the original ruling in March. So the concern with this is if you have the ruling in May 15th, I think it backdates to May 15th. That's the precedent that I would go off of. So if people
it wouldn't go back to the previous hearing, the original hearing that Rich went to where they voted 2-1. It would probably, when they make the formal announcement next month.
I think so, based on the
penalty. There is a real brief. So what you're saying is that it seems like there may be, we don't want to be absolute here because we're not sure, but there may be a very brief window depending on when you hear this. I mean, we're recording this on April the 21st. It's going to go out probably a week later after we produce it and do some other stuff. You hear this thing the end of April, you might have a week or two to order before they announce, but that would be it.
Yeah, the concerns with that. So your quickest timeframes right now for import, right? If the material's ready to go and everything's perfect, 60 days, right? We used to have quick turns in China where you can get like 45, but call it 60 days if you were absolutely lucky. But the assumption's always 90 to 120. You're going to be completely out of the dating on that. So if everything,
it's based on when you receive it, not when you order it.
Yeah, you want it landed and off the ship. Anything that's on the water is problematic.
And the vast majority of the people listening here aren't going to be in a position to order a container, right? Yeah. So I'm glad we're chatting about this, but we've just had 90% of the show turn their ears off.
Yep.
Well, the reason I want to bring that up is I'm running into more and more modest-sized shops that are considering ordering containers.
Okay.
I'm surprised every day. It's not just the 20 million and ups. I'm seeing more and more shops down around 10 million, some a little smaller. They've been in an area geographically. They've had some good business. They got a bit of cash. They want to save some money. So I think it's worth a minute. It's not worth any more than that. Yeah. But you're right about that, Rich. But I'm seeing more and more of that.
Yeah, we've seen more co-sharing too, Rich and Ed, where people are willing to share containers with each other, right? Hey, I need, a basic white quartz with a micro aggregate. Do you want to have half the container? I'll do half. So we've seen that a little bit. My other concern, and I want to hit this really quickly on, so be careful, right? If you can't afford to lose it, don't gamble it. And then the second piece, a lot of people have got swayed. And if you've been at any of the shows, you've heard this DDP, from all the overseas supplier, that's delivery duty paid. That is a farce, just to get people to buy from countries and factories they normally wouldn't. I don't want anyone to be swayed by that. From checking into it with a number of customs brokers, and we've covered this a little bit, but DDP is on the end user. So if the fabricator receives it ultimately, and that company that did the DDP, they had a US, entity, if they BK that, which happens all the time with these groups, they BK it, that ultimately goes to the receiver, and the receiver on record is the fab shop. And they are the ones that are left with that. and they have a sunset clause on DDP that is 4 to 6 years, depending how I read it. But you could be 4 to 6 years down the road and still get hit if that company BKs and they get the retroactive tariff, or if they get any of these duties, judgment against them on duties. So be careful.
Enough
Yeah.
about.
The thing I think it is worth hitting, Rich, back, kind of your point is, why should the average fabricator care? I'm looking at I got up on the screen right now, article from Wall Street Journal about how production builders are really, really cutting back on costs. You buy the house. Oh, you want the remote to go with the garage door opener? Well, that's extra. You want a towel rack in the bathroom? That's extra. Smaller houses, areas are used to 3 cm tops, now going to 2 cm. Just all sorts of ways are cutting back. And I'm wondering, okay, let's say we implement a tariff and let's say it's 50%. It has the impact of the numbers that you ran through, $1,000 extra in cost per house. Were there any builders there where you guys talked about what that impact might be in terms of total housing volume in a market that's already got challenges?
Yeah, no, yes, that was a great conversation. So we'd like the number one lobbyist for the large builders. So his group represents 50% of new homes that are being built this year. And because they're large production builders, they tend to push towards the lower end side, right? So but they have very hard data that shows for every $1,000 that you add to a house, they lose 150,000 new homes being built, right? Wow. So one little countertop tariffy thing, right? Think about how many things are in a house, right? Can all of a sudden squash 150,000 homes across the country. So wow. Extremely price sensitive, and that's a big platform of Trump. Everything's about affordable housing. I mean, I hear it on the TV all the time. So that was a big point. That's why the builder was kind of on our side saying, yeah, no. And then, then it went into, well, okay, no problem. Then shops will just switch to granite. Right. Well, so a couple of problems. One is the reason we're sitting in this darn hallway or this commission is because the guys who make quartz want to be made whole. So if they're just switching to granite, that's not supporting their case. So don't do it. Right. And low end granite has gotten dated. Right. I mean, you don't have a nice white, you don't have a marble look low end granite. So it's not that easy. Right. The new homes want, the beautiful Calcutta, quartz look. So not a lot of good solutions out there. And maybe we just kind of ended on I've got two last thoughts. One is a big topic was glass, right? Do we include glass in this? And it was, again, this is just how funny these arguments get. So those guys, right? The petitioners also know we've got to include glass because when the China tariffs went in place, that's all the Chinese did was they switched to glass-based products and got around it, right? And so flooded the U.S. with glass-based products. The other side is saying, well, and they were all asked, none of them make glass-based products. So, we're tariffing something that's not necessarily affecting your business. So we don't know if glass is going to be included or not in this, and, low silica. So we'll have to see how that one plays out. That's a coin flip at this point. But I've been asked repeatedly, kind of what I thought, and look to the future, right? And it is so all over the board. I mean, I have, but I'm never afraid to give my opinion on something. So my rough guess is that cut the size prefab is going to get hit hard. And is going to get hit with 50% tariffs and probably pretty low quotas. I think slabs, they're going to give us a break. And maybe it's a rolling in of 10%. Then you get to a certain level of imports, then it pops to 20, a rate-based, I think they call it a rate-based tariff or something. Then it goes to 25, then it goes, up. So I think there's going to be some relief there on the slab side of things. But the one thing I know for sure, and then we can move on, the maximum that it can be is 50%, and the maximum duration is 4 years, right? So worst case, low tariff, low quotas, 50% 4 years.
And so smart money says, as a typical fabricator, plan for finding other types of materials to work with. Start talking to your customers if you've got contractors that you work with that are repeat customers, especially. Start getting, having conversations with them about what you expect may be happening in terms of supply and what that means in terms of what you're going to have available for those customers. So
Yeah.
it's time to be thinking ahead. I think it's a fair bet things are going to change to some degree. Nobody knows to what degree and for how long. So you got to be ready for that change. And those who prepare well will be in a better position.
Love it. Love it.
Yep. Okay.
Okay.
Oh,
Um,
tariffs kind of go. I'm sorry. What do you got, Rich? Go ahead.
I was going the exact same direction, right? I've been
Go
talking
ahead.
tariffs. I'm going to take a break. Eric, why don't you talk about tariffs?
What part you want me to talk about, brother?
Well, we're
The
talking
what?
about the
The
refunds. Yeah. I
refund?
mean, we got all these hundreds of billions of dollars going to go in everybody's pockets. How do we get our share of that, man?
Yep. So we talked about this a little bit yesterday, and we've been tracking this. So back in the earlier part of the year, importers of record, right? So anyone that was bringing in these countertop materials that faced the tariff, they did get updates through their brokerages or their freight forwarders that they could submit at some point a request for refund of these tariffs that were deemed not valid, right? I'll just leave it at that to avoid any type of, but not valid at that time. And so Supreme Court overturns that. I checked in with a few of these guys that I've known forever, including our main importer of record for the Galleria. And he's been struggling to get anything submitted and through this portal. They've had a portal. They have to send a special link, blah, blah, blah. And it hasn't worked. This is since February timeframe is what he's told me. And I've heard similar from other people. Yesterday, when we were on our call, it was announced that the general portal would open, and I put a link to it in my LinkedIn post that I did on the topic. But the people could submit by 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time yesterday, or Eastern Daylight. And so we have not heard. I was hoping to get a little bit of data for the call, and that's my fault. So I apologize to both of you. But I have not heard if anyone has successfully submitted their claim for the refund. But just to clarify that, it has to be an importer of record, so it can't be the end user, right? So if a fabricator was getting that tariff through somebody else, right, they can't submit on their own. They would have to request through their supplier if they're willing to share that. But there's no prescribed way for the importer of record to refund anyone on those monies as well. So I think Rich had a good sidebar that we had talked about, like a Costco, right? That could they submit it to Costco, and is it the level of class action? I don't know, but it's interesting. The portal's open. Not sure if it's working correctly, and I have not got positive from anyone that they've been able to submit. Hopefully more info to come, and maybe we edit that into the end part of the episode. But yeah, that's kind of the status of tariffs. So interesting. We all have our own opinion. I think it's one of those, hey, look, we did it. We checked off the box. You can get your money back, but there's no real intent to put a ton of effort to it. And we don't even know the dollar amount. No one's been able to confirm a dollar amount for us. So kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the interesting thing too is because I'm thinking about, okay, I'm a fab shop owner. How does that impact me? I had to pay a higher price for those slabs. Do I get anything back in my pocket? Well, if you think about the fact, okay, Costco ordered container after container of, say, televisions, from overseas. They're the importer of record. When they file and they get some sort of remuneration back from the federal government, well, they paid those tariffs initially, but they passed that cost on to the consumer. And the consumer's got no recourse to go say, hey, where's my money? And what's happening is I've been reading about there are some class action lawsuits already against
Okay.
Costco, FedEx, and others about this whole issue. So there's a lot to come on this yet. Average fabricator shouldn't expect to see any money out of it. Again, one of those things that's good to be aware of, but it's probably not a whole lot you can do about it, and probably not going to have any real impact on your business at this point in terms of tariff refunds.
Yep. No, it's good information.
Yeah. What's interesting is watching the impact all of this is having on imports. The categories. The latest report from Stone World magazine
Yeah.
showing January year over year. It's pretty significant changes on that. What are you
Yeah.
seeing, Eric?
So interestingly, we had talked about this a little bit, but from what we can tell, quartz was down significantly in January, and what we talked about a little bit, which it's following the trend, but quartzite has continued year over year to increase, right? At the top watermark for quartz, as far as the industry percentage, it was anywhere from 65 to 85%, depending on your regionality, right, where you were at in the country. But it was a gigantic number, right? And now you're seeing that retract a little bit. But the interesting part from what we read from that January data is that quartzite jumped by double, and quartz for the first time was down significantly as far as January imports. So kind of interesting, are people nervous about this? Are wholesalers nervous? Are they is it the market? The market's just not turning the way we thought it would, and they just want to hold and see. We did talk about this a little bit before. People ordered a lot of materials, at the tail end of last year. Are they still sitting on too much material, right? Is this kind of a reduction method for some of these wholesale suppliers? So it's interesting, but that data, I don't know if it's alarming data, but that's pretty interesting, to see quartz decline that much and quartzite to take, so much of its space.
Not alarming for me. I love it. I mean, right? I love natural stone, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
it was now it was 66% natural stone is what was brought in January. It was 62% in December. So it's ramping. Right? I mean, that's marble, granite, quartzite, everything combined, but it's kicking quartz's butt, right? After years and years of 70% quartz. Now, again, quartz is easier to work with, so there's a downside from the shops, right? I mean, a lot of shops would rather fabricate quartz, but from a look, it may just be its time, right? I mean, I could also argue too that production building is down, right? And so it's a little bit more higher end, remodels coming in, K and B's coming in. They generally favor natural stone over quartz. So and certainly people know about silicosis now, right?
Yeah.
So and the tariffs, right? So I could probably point to three or four things, and then it's okay, which contributed the most to the decline, right? So I love it. I absolutely, it's good. I'm glad we're diversifying a little. We were getting too quartz heavy anyway.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think the challenge for the typical fabricator is you got to start looking, okay, what other supplies of stone, like we talked about, or materials as we talked about earlier, but then really knowing your natural stones. We're in an industry where a lot of our demand gets driven by the designers, by the Madison Avenue folks to some degree, and the magazines and all that, and also local designers, of course, with all the trends that we've seen the last several years. Well, those desires may not change, but our ability to meet those may change somewhat. So it's going to be really important to look at your different materials, be ready to fabricate those materials. Are you dealing with a real quartzite or something different? You got a real good quality quartzite, or you got some of this really cheap stuff that takes a month to dry out. Those kinds of things have everyday impacts on your bottom line for a fabricator. Got to be ready to deal with those more and more these days, because quartz, between tariffs and probably silicosis, quartz is going to be less and less of an option, it looks like.
2 points on that. Understanding your stone, right? Make sure that you have partners that you can truly trust on the wholesale side, right? That are not just trying to sell you. I get these requests all the time, right? We all get them, right? Hey, we have a great deal for you, Erik, Mr. Erik, you're amazing. We want you to, partner with us. But if you ever hear the term soft quartzite, Ned just gave us one of the indicators of a soft quartzite. That's been predominantly in Brazil. So Brazil has used that nomenclature. I think, is that a thing, Rich? We need to check.
Yes, it is. Good. Now
Yes,
spell it. Spell it.
Nomenclatur. I don't even know. Anyway, so Brazil's used that heavily, and they continue to use it more and more to describe these materials that look more like a marble, but they're a little bit harder, right? So more like a dolomite. But be careful with those, because as Ed pointed out, some of these, they don't have the density of a typical quartzite, and they're thirsty stones. So it takes forever to dry these things out. Be careful, right? Don't just take their word for it, right? Do you know someone that's imported it? Could you get a sample and have the NSI test it for you? They're always great with their testing lab. But just be careful, right? Like if anyone's approaching you with something that's not in the market yet, you don't feel comfortable, and they use soft quartzite, there's no such thing in geology. If you went to a geologist and said, "Hey, I found this really," he'll slap you in the face. Like there's no such thing as soft quartzite. And then the second point for that, the interesting, I don't want to beat a dead horse of what we talked about, but these options that are coming back. My friend owns a very well-known building company here in Utah, and they build mid-level homes. They're nice homes. I walked through some of their projects, and it was the first time that I've seen laminate and top mount sinks. So if we don't feel like if this is impacting the builders have to do this to maintain costs. And I sent him a picture. I said, I hated being inside this house. This sucks. And it wasn't the kitchen, it was the bathroom, right? And it was like one of the upstairs bathrooms. But just to see that come back, it makes me feel like we went backwards 20 years because we're costing ourselves out. The average homeowner can't. And these homes, I mean, to just tell you, this is anywhere from 600 to 700K, so not a starter. And I'm like, my gosh, like, please don't let that come back. I'm not passionate about laminate by any means.
I thought you were in favor of laminate, Eric. I couldn't tell.
No.
Speaking of things that are changing, with all the stuff happening over in the big sandbox, are we seeing fuel surcharges start to rear their ugly head again?
We are, yeah. And on all the forums, we're hearing a lot. That was probably one of the worst experiences of my life, is when Dow Tile first announced, and this is 2008, I want to say, when we first announced energy. We called it energy surcharge. There's a lot of complaints in the fabrication industry, right, of how you get your bill and all these additional fees, right? And when they call for a price, it's like, man, I didn't plan on 3 to 5% of these additional fees. Fuel surcharges are here, and they've been here for a while, and they're here to stay. Unfortunately, man, fuel has gone up immensely. So I'll give you just a really quick. We buy a lot of stuff from our architectural stone plant in Mexico. The typical truck to get from Mexico, Torreon to Salt Lake City was about, call it $5,000. That doubled with this latest round of fuel, 10,000.
Ooh.
And there's no one building that. I mean, for me, like, it's like these fireplaces. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't order the fireplaces. Like, I have to wait. So yeah, fuel surcharges are going to be here, and I think they're going to see another round of them as the fuel supply with the issues with the Iran and conflict. I don't think they're going away, and I think they're going to increase. But yeah, I mean, freight is ridiculous, horrible freight right now. It's horrible. So
wow.
Thanks.
So
Thanks for cheering me up.
Well, just one more thing.
Rich, guess what? Everything's more expensive.
Yeah.
Well, just something else I think for fabricators to be aware of. You can't absorb those costs. It's very difficult for the average fabricator to absorb those costs. So you got to figure out how to pass those on. We know as fab shop owners, people who are listening to this, how upset we get when we get an invoice from a distributor that's got a fuel surcharge. How does your customer feel about that? So what's your strategy going to be? Are you going to itemize a fuel surcharge and then maybe it disappears or goes up or down later on? Or do you just adjust your prices overall? What's easier to sell to your customer? So that's something to be thinking about in terms of how you're going to run your business, because it's a real issue today.
Yeah.
Such great news on the podcast, guys. It's
optimistic.
Let's cheer everybody up and let's cheer everybody up and talk about silicosis.
So I was going to say it's really a challenging time in the industry with all the tariffs going on, possible quotas, the fuel issue we just talked about, and then now we got silicosis on top of that. I keep wondering, will the silicosis issue get combined with the tariff issue and really hammer quartz into submission in the very near term and possibly for a long period of time? A lot of stuff coming out there.
Great question. Ed, you've been doing this longer than Rich and I, but have you seen a time that's more problematic for our industry? I mean, would you define that this is the most challenging time in the top industry's history?
08.
Yeah, Great Recession would be more, because it's much more widespread and much more severe. Yeah. But I think we're probably not too far. We're not as bad as 08. but we're in the same universe. I mean, they're big issues, big headways with cost and all that. The good
Yep.
news is demand hasn't totally collapsed. Now, in some areas, it's really soft. Okay, I was in Memphis last week with an SI regional event,
Yep.
and I hadn't been to Memphis in over 10 years, 10, 15
Yep.
years. And I was shocked at the number of storefronts that were closed in Memphis. Okay.
Mhm.
I live in South Carolina. We're the fastest growing state in the country. When you track capital inflows and outflows, we got the highest capital inflow per capita. So we don't have those issues here. So the good news is, at least in some parts of the country, demand hasn't died yet. In '08, demand died, and you had all these other issues. Now we've just got a lot of cost issues and supply issues. If you can still make a strong case for your value proposition, your unique value proposition to customers, if you're in a soft market, you can go out and start working on taking market share and put pressure on your competition. And that's the strong play. That's the pro play for a fabricator. We don't have time to get into how all that works in this podcast, but that's really what you've got to be focusing on if you're in an area like what I saw in Memphis last week. But yeah, it's serious stuff when you're already running at 3 to 5%, which a lot of shops are in terms of net margin. This is the kind of stuff that you really have to keep your eyes on. Otherwise, all of a sudden you're underwater
Yep.
financially, and you can't afford to do that. And the reason we spend time on these is make you aware of them because they will impact your bottom line. You got to watch it.
Yeah.
So
So on your end, obviously you do all these really great coaching items for these fabrication shop owners, right? And I've loved our conversations about how you help them figure out the ERP system, through your one tool. I love all these different things that you're doing, but from you, because really Rich and I are kind of fake, right? Like we're fab splainers. This is what I came up with. If we don't own a fab shop, but we talk like, we're fab splaining at that point. But you're not a fab splainer. So what are the top things that these fabricators can do to get better information, to help the organization, to help the countertop? And I mean, what are those top things that you're thinking of in this point in time that fab shop owners can do? I mean,
well, listen to Stone Chatter, of course. I mean, there is no better source. All right. Seriously. I have my background is I've worked in lots of different industries, mostly manufacturing, lots of manufacturing industries from automotive, aerospace down to wooden roof trusses. I mean, all over the map and all over the world. And I have not seen an industry anywhere that has the quantity and the quality of industry membership organizations that the countertop industry does. You've got NSI that is so strong on everything that they've been involved in. Anything they touch, they will solve world hunger if it affects the countertop industry. You've got ISFA, which is more nimble. They're leaner. They move quicker. You've got groups that focus. They're really really close to fab shop owners and day to day operational and production type things like SFA and all slab fabbers and those folks out there. You've got the membership organizations like Rockheads and Artisan that have things that they offer. There's so many different ways for fab shop owners and key people in shops to get involved and to get help. I've worked with a lot of business owners and a lot of industries throughout my career, and I've been a business owner myself. And when you're in that role, you feel like the lone person on the island that's got to make all the decisions all the time, and it's exhausting. And you know that you're going to make mistakes. The thing and it feels, and it's a really lonely position, but it doesn't have to be because there's so many opportunities to interact. Fab shop owners continue to pleasantly surprise me with how much they're willing to share with people who may even be competitors. Things that they will share with you about what they do, how they do it, challenges they have, things they've tried, what worked, what didn't. There's just so much available. So the short answer to your question, Erik, is get involved in these organizations. Pick one and go to some events. I keep running into shop owners that haven't even been to TICE. They haven't been to coverings. And so that's key too, just to see what's going. And Surfex, when it comes out, I'm really looking forward to Surfex next fall. But if you can't get into that one yet, but join these organizations and go to a meeting. Shop owners that have never done that before, when they start doing that, they come back and say, well, "Wow, I don't have to be lonely anymore. Now I've got people I can talk to who deal with what I deal every day," and it makes such a huge difference. Rich, you were talking about the fact that you had the first ITC hearing you went to, there were you and a fabricator there. And this
Mhm.
latest one, there were like 15 fabricators. Didn't you say ISFA got like 12 of those folks to show up?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they really activated all of the yeah. All I mean, they have that arm, the INTC or something like that. That I don't know exactly what it is, how it
Yeah.
works, but it's all associated with this, I believe, still. But yeah, I mean, they all they showed up because ISFA kind of activated their their power to get them there. It was amazing, and I hope that continues because this certainly the the beauty and the curse of our industry, right? Easy barrier to entry. I mean, it's hard work. Don't get me wrong, right? But you can start up a business in our industry. There's lots of us, which is great, but we don't have any power because we're so fragmented, right? And so, for the fabricator's voice to stand up to a supplier from Minnesota, you need to be able to aggregate and get that voice in front of people that need to hear it. So I love what they're doing, and I hope that keeps going. I hope some of the other groups I know that do the same. I mean, like we said, SFA was there. They were there, kind of doing the same thing. So yeah, join an association, right? Some of them are free, some of them are nominal, not very expensive, but so well worth it.
Oh yeah,
And a few,
absolutely.
yeah, a few of them will let you try, like, go to an event, right, and check it out. I know Rich and I invited people all the time when we were with Rockheads. I've heard similarly from All Slab Fabbers, ISFA, so yeah, I mean, I think it's worth its weight.
Yeah, absolutely. Single best recommendation to answer your question, Eric, is join one of the associations. And the next one is go to trade shows. We've got a lot to choose from. That landscape's changing. We talked about that in a previous episode, so go back and listen. I think the first episode. Well, actually, we hit it too with the latest one with the machinery guys. We
Yeah.
talked about the changes with Tice and Surfex and all that are coming up. So stay on top of that. But going to those shows, you want a good overview of what's happening in the industry. That's your one-stop shop. Is to go to used to be Tice, now I think it's going to be Surfex. It'll probably give you the best overview there. So.
We know if
And
they
I'd
allow
say
deadlifting. Did they allow deadlifting at Surfex? Have we heard anything about that yet?
You probably have to
I've been lobbying
call
against it.
call Lankto and see if you can twist his arms. All I can tell you, Eric.
Yeah.
I dropped it on him. He was like, "What?" And I'm like, "Oh, just look at the last 2 years." Yeah, that's great.
They probably have a dress code too, by the way,
Yeah.
Eric. So
So
just
Good.
say it.
It's inappropriate. I'm still getting hate mail from me, being offensive at ISFA too, being in my underwear. But Justin Bieber, the week after that at the awards ceremony, he wore the same outfit. So I'm a trendsetter. Trendsetter.
You're a trendsetter.
What else?
Hey,
Well,
we
we've
got
got
yeah,
go ahead.
got a
I was
little bit
gonna
of optimism at the end, yeah.
I've got a new episode we're trying to put together for down the road, talking about some of the vertical integration trends that we're seeing in the industry. We noticed just recently Home Depot had a big acquisition. They didn't go out and buy a fabricator, but I think it tells us a lot about some of the challenges that they've got. When you think about the economy in general, the pressure on everything, we've talked about home building a good bit. The big box stores certainly feel that pressure in a lot of ways. So Home Depot just went out and bought a company called Simple Automation. It's simple without the E. And they're a leader in automation and technology systems for warehousing, for a lot of pick and pack, ASRS, automatic storage retrieval systems, a lot of AI, some robotics and automation. They did a test run at their Locust Grove, Georgia distribution center, had amazing results in terms of stats. And so it's just an example of how Home Depot in this case is investing a lot to make their entire system much more efficient. They're feeling a lot of these same pressures fabricators are too. And so when we start talking about vertical integration in the industry, I think it's a factor to kind of keep in mind that there are a lot of economic factors that are driving a lot of this. It's making a lot of sense in a lot of areas. And it's something that I think fabricators be listening for that episode. We're probably what, 3 or 4 episodes out, I think, on that one. But it's going to be a really important topic for folks to stay on top of.
Yeah. Yeah, if they're not watching it, they should be.
Yeah, what everyone should do, like now, is right. By now, I mean, right. Take a note, right? go to Wren Kitchens. It's WREN Kitchens, and you'll see what we're talking about, right? Wren dominates the UK. They've got a massive plant and in the Pittsburgh area in Pennsylvania, and their motto is like from earth to home, right? And within one, so they're building the slabs, to order, right? And then they're fabricating them, and then they're installing them. And talk about vertical integration, and they have aspirations of going national, and they're well funded. So that will be part of our conversation, right? And we've got the whole kind of, we've all seen Depot acquiring shops, right? And kind of playing in our backyard. Again, that goes back to this like supplier versus now we not only do the shops have supplier versus shop issues, right now downstream we've got shops versus customer issues. I mean,
Yeah,
holy
yeah.
crap. But go check out Wren Kitchens. They've got a drone video, 2-minute video, and these guys are not messing around. And so that'll be a good intro before we roll out, that episode where we again try to scare the heck out of everybody.
Well,
So what's good news? Does
it's
anybody have any good news?
Oof.
nothing new out of California on silicosis. How about that?
Yeah.
Okay.
We do expect maybe a new ruling from them sometime next month. There was
Yep.
another hearing last week where they had a lot of Spanish-speaking employees come in and talk. Haven't heard a lot out of that. Nothing really new out of that. On silicosis front, there is apparently a significant silicosis lawsuit in Denver, so it's not just a California thing anymore. We don't know a lot of details about it, but we're trying to find out some more information about it. But that continues to be an issue. So it's just one of the many things fab shop owners got to be aware of. Go to
Mhm.
NSI, go to ISFA, get the information, get trained, stay on top of silicosis. Um,
On that front too, Ed, because we researched and I forgot to update, but Massachusetts, it sounds like there might be something in Massachusetts, Texas, which is very surprising to me on the
Yeah.
Texas front, and then Washington. So
yeah,
we've got red and blue states that have cases that have been announced. So it's definitely not sticking in California. So
yep, yep. So be aware, be prepared.
Come on. Something good? I said good, and you guys go right to silicosis.
Sorry, I thought the good news was
Are you a
nothing new.
lawyer? Are you a lawyer in California? What's going on here?
what's going on here? The good news is you're aging like a fine wine, Rich. Every time I see, this is aging well, and I'm aging like a brick of cheese left in a hot car. So that's good. That's good news.
Whereas I'm more along the lines of really choice, well-aged bourbon.
Ah, okay.
Go with it too.
I think it was
I mean,
great that you go ahead.
oh no, I was just gonna say. I mean, again, I'm half kidding, but really not kidding, right? This has been 90%. Like, I'm gonna go jump out of my bedroom window here. The, you know, I do think there's a really nice surge of technology coming into the industry, right? There's, new ERP systems, new quoting software, right? I'm just seeing a really, cool wave of things coming in. And I'm hoping the machines, right? We can kind of, and that's part of our episode, right?
Yep.
Some new technology with the robots and the CNC and the scanners. And I mean, there is some really cool stuff, all the automation, the full plant automation that we saw at Coverings and Tice. Some of that stuff is really, really cool. And, I don't want to lose track of that too much. And, I
Yeah.
guess my positive spin on things is, um, we've got a lot of opportunity as an industry to make a lot more money, right? One of my favorite stats, right, and it was started by Peter Lecoq at Grand Courts, right? He used to walk into a shop, he knew their revenue, he'd count employees, and he'd say, let's see, revenue divided by employees, you're at $150,000 per employee. You're not efficient. You need to be over 200, right? And it was
Yeah.
and he was right. I mean, that's still the number, right? And other industries are running, other manufacturers are running at 600, right? 3 to 1. Now, again, heavy material. We're also a retail outlet. There's a lot of reasons working against us why they're better, but I still look at that as we're at 200, the average is 600. we've got room to make more money. And that gets, you got to figure out how, but that gets me excited. We're not like so fine-tuned and everybody's so good that there's no opportunity. I really think with some technology, some organization, right, that we all can really push up the profitability of these shops.
I
I agree
agree.
100%. The presentation I made it, and we're not again not trying to commercialize what each of the three of us do, but it's a resource that's available. The presentation I made at the NSI Tennessee event last week was about how to track metrics on a daily basis as opposed to monthly, quarterly, or annually, and how to get really good, effective metrics to show you did you win the day yesterday or not. And
Mhm.
shops that have implemented that are able to start to drive up their EBITDA and their net earnings very, very quickly because they start to understand all the things intuitively that we know hurt us. When you're able to start putting dollars and cents on what the real impact is, it comes home really quickly. And shops who react positively to that and make good changes can really impact their bottom line. And I think the other thing that gives me a lot, so I know operationally that's workable. It certainly tracks what you just said, Rich. But the other thing that gets me excited is, and again, we're not trying to promote what Rich's company, but nobody else is really doing a lot with AI in the industry. Rich, are you guys getting ready to start your workshops again?
Yeah, yes, yep. So we've got a May
Okay.
one scheduled.
So
But more excitingly than I'll end the commercial, our first product's coming out in about 30 days. So
sweet.
that's
Well,
so
I'm thinking about
good.
a couple of things. Number one, you can buy the product and you can talk about that. But a lot of shops out there, because of the nature of the industry and nature of the owners, they like to tinker with things. They like to play with technology, like to see what's new. Well, AI is one of those things that's really, really easy and cheap to get into. But there's nobody out there other than Rich's company that's doing training in AI for stone shops. There's nobody else out there.
Yep.
And so you can figure a lot of stuff out on your own, but if you can go through, what is this, about 16 hours or so of training, something
Yeah.
like that,
Yeah, it's about
uh,
right.
over a period of a couple of weeks or a week or so, and get some really solid. I mean, I've been through it. You get some really good, solid solutions. It can get you off and running in a hurry, and that again can have a big impact on that metric you're talking about, Rich. That $200,000 in revenue per employee. You start looking at ways to help drive revenue up using AI, and then ways to service that revenue without having to hire new people using AI. Now you start being able to take that number up, which is what I like.
Yep. You got it. You got it. Yep.
Yeah,
And you're absolutely right. And one of the main takeaway or one of the main takeaways is there's three type of AI projects, right? One is 100% you can do it yourself, right? I can do it, right? You can do it. I mean,
right.
and there's there's big value there. Then
Absolutely.
there's a whole bundle of them that you could probably do 80% of the work, right? You know what you want, but you just don't have the technical chops to push it across the finish line. Good
Yeah.
news is there's lots of companies out there that can help you get that across the finish line. So, being able to, and then there's kind of more what we focus a little bit on, which is a drop-in solution. But knowing going into it, right, that's the value of the training. Oh, I want AI to do this for me. Well, I'm not even going to waste my time doing it myself because I know that's too complicated. Or, yeah, why the hell am I paying someone? Yeah, I got a buddy who's an IT guy or my nephew or whatever. He can do it for me. So, yeah, you're totally right. There's so much value that AI can pull out just doing things yourself.
Yep. So while we've got a lot of challenges facing us in the industry, there are some really, really good opportunities. And I think there's some new technology coming on. I think on the templating side of things, I think there's some new stuff fixing to hit in the next 6 to 12 months that will make the tech things we think are great tech now, make it look old school pretty quickly. And there's some more things that I think are coming that are AI based. They're going to be really cool too. So I think there's a
Does
lot
the
of good.
templating start with an I and end with a phone?
Yes, it does. Now that you mention it, I'm not sure how to spell that, but I think I understand what you. Yeah, yeah. But there's some really cool stuff that's out there. So I think some really good positive changes. Again, shop owners need to stay on top of this. Need to take advantage of these opportunities. Go talk to other shops. See who's doing things with AI. What simple solutions have they developed for themselves and implemented and had good success with? What have they tried to do and it really bit them in the rear end, and why? And how do I go get that straightened out? So I think those are another good reason to get involved in industry associations and go talk about this stuff.
Love it.
Yep. So a lot of good
Is that
lot of good
it?
potential out there. Yep.
I would like to fight. I would like to fight our friend's robot as soon as it delivers. I just the Terminator 2 thing. I want to prevent it. So if I can win dominance over the robot at our fab shop friends in Texas, that would be great.
If you watch, did you watch the half marathon they ran last week? So it was funny. At first, the news is like they beat humans by 7 minutes, and they were all excited. Then, kind of the next rolls came out where all of the ones that fell on their faces and ran into walls and just like basically got it was great. So I'm glad they did equal coverage, right? No fake news. Yeah, there were some good ones, but oh my God, there were so many bad ones.
Having robots in fabrication is one thing. I want the robots to start carrying island tops upstairs for us.
Oh yes, please. Yeah,
that's what I want to see.
Yeah, you get Aaron Crawley on that. The next no lift is a robot.
It's funny, but yeah, it could be.
Yep, definitely.
Save some backs.
Yep, definitely, for sure. Guys, a lot of good information we covered here today. Hopefully, it's helpful for fab shop owners. That's why we do what we do, right?
I think we've got good feedback, not to self-plug us, and I do my little commercials in the morning, right? Stone Chatter, the best podcast in the industry, is voted on by me. But there's something to it because people have, and you've said it, Ed, Rich has said it, and I've said it, but we've had some pretty high-profile people that have said they love what we're doing. So, let's keep it up.
Let's keep it up. We'll see you guys in a few weeks.
Sweet. All right, look forward to it. Thanks, guys.
Later, guys.
You boys.
Right.